The rain fell in sheets over Manhattan, turning the streets into rivers of reflected neon. On the penthouse floor of a glass tower overlooking Central Park, Victor Langston stood by a floor-to-ceiling window, swirling a glass of bourbon. His reflection stared back, sharp and unyielding, a man who'd built an empire from nothing but ambition. At 52, his name was synonymous with wealth, tech startups, real estate, private jets. But tonight, his focus wasn't on markets or mergers. It was on the chaos unfolding at his feet. A wiry, black ant interior named Brutus darted across the polished marble floor, yipping frantically. He skidded into a priceless Ming vase, which wobbled but didn't fall, then tore toward a leather sofa, claws shredding its surface. Victor's jaw tightened. 3 dog trainers, 2 behaviorists, and a self-proclaimed pet whisperer had failed to tame the beast. Each had left with a hefty check and no results. Brutus was a hurricane with fur, and Victor was at his wit's end. He turned to the small crowd gathered in his penthouse, friends, business associates, a few curious socialites who'd heard about his latest stunt. $1 million, he declared, his voice cutting through the chatter. 1 million to anyone who can calm this dog for good. 1 hour, no tricks, no sedatives. Just make him stop. He gestured at Brutus, who was now gnawing on a curtain tassel. The room buzzed with laughter and murmurs. $1 million? For a dog? Typical Victor, always turning problems into spectacles. Across the city, in a soggy alley off 8th Avenue, 9-year-old Lila crouched under a tattered awning. Her hoodie was soaked, her sneakers squelched, and her stomach growled louder than the thunder overhead. Beside her, tucked into a cardboard box lined with an old scarf, was a scruffy mutt named Penny. The dog's fur was matted, but her eyes were bright, fixed on Lila as if she were the only thing in the world that mattered. Lila tore off a piece of the stale bagel she'd scrounged from a deli dumpster and gave it to Penny, keeping only a crumb for herself. "We're okay," she whispered, stroking the dog's ears. "We've got each other." Lila had been on the streets for 6 months, ever since her mom's overdose and the foster system's bureaucracy had spit her out. She'd learned to move like a shadow, avoiding cops and creeps, finding warmth in subway grates and food in forgotten corners. Penny had been with her since the first week, a stray who'd followed her from a park bench and never left. They were a team, surviving together in a city that didn't care. Word of Victor's challenge spread like wildfire. By morning, it was on every newsstand, trending on X, and lighting up group chats across the 5 boroughs. A billionaire's $1 million bet on a dog? It was the kind of story people couldn't resist. Dog trainers, influencers, and opportunists lined up at Langston Tower, each claiming they had the magic touch. Victor, ever the showman, turned it into an event, hosting daily trials in his penthouse with a live stream for the world to watch. The rules were simple. 1 hour to calm Brutus, no drugs, no restraints. Success meant $1 million. Failure meant joining the growing list of embarrassed hopefuls. Lila heard about it from a street vendor named Sal, who tossed her a hot pretzel out of pity. "You see this?" he said, showing her his phone. The screen glowed with a clip of Brutus snarling at a trainer in a tailored suit. Guy's offering $1 million to fix his dog. Can you believe it? Lila watched, her eyes narrowing. $1 million could change everything: shelter, food, a real bed. But more than that, she saw the dog. Brutus wasn't mean, she thought. He was scared, lost, like Penny had been before Lila earned her trust. She didn't have a plan, just a feeling. Lila wasn't one for dreaming big. She'd learned that hope could hurt, but something about Brutus called to her. She waited until dusk, when the city's chaos softened, and made her way to Langston Tower. The doorman, a burly guy with a soft spot for strays, saw her shivering in her oversized hoodie, Penny at her side. "Kid, you lost?" he asked. "I'm here for the dog thing," Lila said, chin up. "The $1 million bet." He chuckled, assuming she was joking, but her eyes were steady. Against his better judgment, he let her in, muttering something about Victor's circus. The elevator ride to the penthouse felt like a trip to another planet. Lila clutched Penny's leash, her heart pounding. When the doors opened, she stepped into a world of glass and gold, where people in expensive clothes sipped champagne and laughed at the yapping terrier. Victor spotted her immediately. "Who's this?" he asked, his tone half amused, half annoyed. The crowd turned, their eyes scanning Lila's dirty sneakers and Penny's scruffy fur. A few snickered. Lila didn't flinch. "I'm here to try," she said. "For Brutus." The room erupted in laughter. "A homeless kid? With a mangy mutt?" Victor raised an eyebrow, intrigued by the audacity. "You've got 1 hour," he said, checking his watch. "Go on, kid. Amaze us." Lila ignored the crowd and knelt on the floor, her movements slow and deliberate. Brutus froze, his ears twitching. He growled, but it was softer than before, more curious than hostile. Lila didn't reach for him. Instead, she sat cross-legged, letting Penny curl up beside her. "Hey, Brutus," she said softly, her voice steady despite the eyes boring into her. "You don't gotta be scared." She didn't use treats or commands, didn't try to grab him. She just sat there, humming a tune her mom used to sing, a lullaby about stars and quiet nights. Penny's tail thumped gently, and Brutus tilted his head, his frantic energy slowing. The room grew quiet, the crowd's smirks fading. Victor leaned forward, his bourbon forgotten. Lila knew dogs like Brutus. She'd seen that wild look in Penny's eyes when they first met, fear dressed up as fury. Back then, Lila had been patient, offering scraps in an alley, sitting still until Penny crept closer. Trust wasn't forced, it was earned. So she waited, letting Brutus come to her. After 10 minutes, he took a cautious step. Then another. By 20 minutes, he was sniffing her hand, his tail no longer tucked. The crowd murmured, but Lila didn't hear them. She was in the alley again, just her and a scared dog, the world shrinking to that small, fragile connection. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the last piece of her bagel, offering it to Brutus. He sniffed, then ate, his body relaxing. By the 40-minute mark, he was lying beside her, his head resting on her knee. Penny nudged him gently, and he didn't snap. The room was silent now, the air heavy with something no one could name. Victor stared, his usual confidence shaken. He'd expected another failure, another laugh. Instead, he saw his dog, his impossible, infuriating dog, calm for the first time in years. When the hour ended, Brutus was asleep, curled against Lila like she was his home. The crowd erupted in applause, but Lila didn't smile. She looked at Victor, her eyes clear. "He's not bad," she said. "He's just lonely." Victor was a man who trusted numbers, not feelings, but something in Lila's voice hit him like a punch. He'd grown up poor, scraping by in a Brooklyn tenement, and he recognized the steel in her, the kind that came from surviving. "What's your name, kid?" he asked. "Lila," she said, stroking Brutus's fur. "And this is Penny." He nodded, his mind racing. The $1 million was his to give, but money felt cheap in this moment. He built walls around himself, wealth, power, control, but this girl, with nothing but a stray dog and a stale bagel, had done what his millions couldn't. "You've earned it," he said finally. "The money's yours." The crowd cheered again, but Lila's face didn't change. She looked at Brutus, then at Penny, then back at Victor. "I don't want it," she said. The room froze. Victor blinked. "What?" "I don't want your money," Lila repeated. "Just take care of him. He needs someone who sees him, not someone who wants to fix him." She stood, brushing dog hair off her jeans. "Me and Penny, we're fine." Victor was speechless, a rare thing. The crowd whispered, some calling her crazy, others moved to tears. Lila didn't care. She'd seen what money did, her mom's addiction, the men who'd preyed on her in shelters. $1 million wouldn't fix the hole in her chest, but Penny's warmth did. Brutus's trust did. She turned to leave, Penny at her side, but Victor called out, "Wait." He crossed the room, his polished shoes clicking on the marble. "You can't just walk away. You did something here." He hesitated, then added, "Stay. Not for the money. For Brutus. For you." Lila studied him, wary. She learned not to trust promises. But there was something in Victor's eyes, a crack in his armor, that made her pause. "I'll come back," she said finally. "For Brutus." The next morning, the story was everywhere, headlines, talk shows, ex-posts with millions of likes. A homeless girl had tamed the billionaire's dog, then turned down $1 million. Some called it a stunt, others a miracle. Lila didn't see it. She was back in the alley, sharing a hot dog with Penny, planning her next visit to Brutus. Victor didn't just give her access to his penthouse. He hired a lawyer to navigate the foster system, found her a small apartment, and made sure she had food and clothes. He didn't call it charity, he called it a debt. Lila didn't trust him fully, but she trusted Brutus, and that was enough. She visited every day, teaching Victor how to sit still, how to listen, how to be the person Brutus needed. In return, Victor taught her about the world he knew, numbers, strategy, power. They were an odd pair, the billionaire and the street kid, but they understood each other in ways neither expected. Months later, at a quiet park bench, Lila watched Brutus and Penny chase each other through the grass. Victor sat beside her, no bourbon, no suit, just a man who'd remembered what it felt like to care. You changed things, he said, his voice low. Not just for him. For me. Lila shrugged, her eyes on the dogs. I just saw him, she said. Sometimes that's all it takes.